And my mic is muted. Welcome to DNF. I am off to a hot start. I'm Jessica Smetana. He's Spencer Hall. We are recapping the Azerbaijan Grand Prix this morning, and Ferrari took the name of our show very literally, Spencer. I think we need to begin.
This is my Ferrari take.
We need to begin with this. I also just want to laugh out loud because it was just a comedy of errors. I mean, first, Carlos Sainz retires his car with a hydraulic issue, and then Charles Leclerc, who probably would have won the race, depending on if their weird pit strategy worked, which it might have. They pitted under the safety car. He has to retire his car because there's smoke billowing out of the back of it. So both Ferraris now.
Is that bad?
Yeah.
That bad? That seems bad.
I mean, if it happened to me, like on the Florida Turnpike, I'd probably keep driving, but that's a different thing.
Well, that means you work for AlphaTauri. You just want to put some duct tape on that. Just put some duct tape on that. Keep it rolling.
So this is Ferraris. This is now 5 times that the Ferraris have had to retire this season. Leclerc's second. He retired at Spain and now in Azerbaijan. Sainz had to retire at Australia, Emilia-Romagna, and Azerbaijan. So earlier in the season, Red Bull was the unreliable car because they had some big retirements. And now it looks like Ferrari is just completely fumbling away this thing.
I think it is a perfectly legitimate question. By the way, first, Max Verstappen won. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Max Verstappen won. Before we say anything else.
The sky is blue. The sun rises in the east. Max Verstappen won another race. Yeah.
Right. And Checo looked great early and then got passed by Verstappen. I feel like we have the greatest feedback loop when it comes to Red Bull, in that both drivers look awesome once a race. Both drivers inevitably look great, and then Max wins. That seems to be the pattern here. We had a little micro bubble of, they're holding Checo back. They're holding Checo back. No, Max is unreal. But that's not the story. Ferrari absolutely spitting the bit at every opportunity in every single way seems to be the theme for this year, more so than Max. Like, it's almost overshadowing Max being this good is Ferrari's incompetence, bad luck, and absolutely bizarre thinking, which brings me to a point. Jess, do we think that Ferrari knows they're running a race team?
There are times where it feels like maybe the engineers are just kind of watching the race, and this is like, we're like, the race is getting in the way of their Sunday espresso time. Like, they're just kind of hanging out, drinking their fancy coffees. Like, we saw their espresso setup at the Miami Grand Prix, Spencer. It is fancy, and I don't blame them at all, by the way. I love an early morning Sunday espresso. They're just drinking their little coffees, and they're like, oh shit, there's a driver in the pit lane. Oh shit, there's another driver in the pit lane. What do we do?
Oh yeah, like, oh dear, we need to come up with the pit strategy. What is pit strategy? Like, I really do get the sensation that there's some Googling going on of what is pit strategy, because we saw that, in the last race you had Ferrari saying, come pit. No, stay out.
No, go back, go away, leave.
And it ended up costing them the race. Like, it arguably costing them the race. And in this case, it's not just, by the way, that Ferrari cost Ferrari the race. It's that Ferrari also, by extension, probably cost Haas one driver as well. Yeah, because Kevin Magnussen, who, this was announcer curse personified. His Croft was like, you see Kevin Magnussen here, just heading off to a nice finish. And 10 seconds later, it was, Kevin Magnussen pulling over. Like, Croft, don't ever say anything nice about Haas.
Yeah.
As a charter member of #HaasGang, do not say anything nice about Haas, because that's a curse. That'll happen. Only, by the way, Mick Schumacher understood that you cannot fully stress the gorgeous and brilliant Ferrari engine to its max. Only Mick Schumacher, right, managed to understand that this Ferrari engine is best handled in P16 or whatever.
Yeah, he's also skating on thin ice right now. I think he's just trying to not get he's like, Gunther Steiner is going to slap me in the face if I crash another time. So I'm just going to stay in the backyard. I'm not even going to try to do anything this week. But yeah, I think, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, how hard is it for Gunther Steiner to get mad at Schumacher? Because if you did watch Drive to Survive, and I'm guessing a lot of people here did, when you watched it, he was so giddy and getting mad at Mazepin because he was so ready to do it.
Yeah.
Because nobody liked Nikita Mazepin. Everyone likes Mick Schumacher, and yet he has to become infuriated at him from time to time. It's just got to be eating him up. I cannot wait to see that next season.
Same. I think Mazepin took up so much of Steiner's like mental like anguish over the last few seasons that he
Mm-hmm.
forgot that he also hates Mick Schumacher. So now he's like, oh. And then Kevin Magnussen showed up.
You are the nicest guy, and I hate you so much.
I hate everyone. But K-Mag showed up and actually has been having a pretty good season, you know, all things considered. And now he's like, well, why is Mick Schumacher consistently in the back? But your point about Max Verstappen being great and all of these things is true. However, one thing that Max Verstappen has not done well this season is qualify. But now, because of all of Ferrari's issues with their car and the strategy, Verstappen's actually won more races that Leclerc has been on pole for than Leclerc has won of races he's been on pole for. So that's just a fantastic stat that I saw on Twitter. Verstappen doesn't even really need to try in qualifying as long as as long as he's on the front line, right? As long as he's kind of up there, he can just bank on the fact that something stupid's going to happen. He'll probably end up winning the race or coming in P2 behind Checo.
Yeah. And in addition to that, his team will protect him. I am starting to enjoy conspiracy theory Twitter on F1 a lot.
Be careful with that. Yeah.
I know one must be careful and note that they are all fictional. However, very compelling fictions. Every time the Jackman has to wait for a green light for Checo's car and he waits just like a half second too long, there's somebody on Twitter who goes, "Oh, they're holding him up. They're holding Checo back."
I like that conspiracy theory. I mean, there was some like, you know, when Verstappen passed him the first time, it didn't seem like Perez had any sort of he was not trying to defend his position, right? I think he kind of knows his place. But now with the finish that they have today, the drivers' championship standings are Verstappen, Perez, Charles Leclerc. Charles Leclerc is not even in second place anymore. So
it is a question. I know the Ferraris had mechanical adventures left and right, and they've had some strategic foibles. For instance, sort of just freestyling on what pit strategy might be. But it's worth asking, what was the first thing that happened in this race, Jess, when Charles Leclerc had the pole and was ready to go? What was the first thing that happened?
Yeah, he got passed on turn 1 by Checo. Yeah.
He got passed at turn 1.
Yeah, he didn't have a great start. Did not have a great start. Crofty attributed it to, I believe, his tires cooling down while they waited for the rest of the grid to get in line. But I'm like, wouldn't Perez's tires also have been cooler then also? Like, he just didn't have a great start.
No, he didn't have a great start. And that's the first thing that happened is he got passed. Like, we keep making little excuses for Leclerc not closing the deal. That's it. It's not like in a smooth race, there are guys who seem to thrive on a little bit of chaos. A little bit. By the way, to that point, Sebastian Vettel today, who completely overran turn 4, had to go into the bailout lane in Baku.
That was so nifty, that little spin.
Oh, yeah. By the way, like, he missed it, and he's sitting in his head thinking, crap. Like, ruined it. But, in his head, too, he goes, watch this, though. Like, I can do a cool thing. And just whipped around, took it back, and ended up having a stellar race, right? Yeah. I believe Seb finished P6. Is that where he finished? P7? He was top 10. That's outstanding. That's a person who understands and can roll with a little bit of chaos. And I know today's maybe not the best example of that because his car exploded on him, just like all the Ferraris. But it just seems that when there's a little bit of chaos in a race, Leclerc doesn't handle it that well. And Ferrari in general doesn't handle it that well on both ends because a lot of times they are the cause of the chaos and they don't react well to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think in defense of Leclerc, he absolutely should have won at Monaco last weekend. Like, he was so far ahead when they decided to screw him up with the tire strategy with Carlos Sainz actually kind of like having the best strategy and then still ending up in second, I think is a testament to that. Because at least they saved that. But you're right. I think he's struggling a little bit. Even I think he does better when he's not on pole. He's not good at defending the first place position, and I don't think Ferrari's doing him any favors.
Yeah, it's that question of if somebody is snake bitten, are they unlucky or are they spending too much time trying to pet snakes? Like that's really kind of the metaphor I have in my head here because it's very hard to tell because he's been a victim of both, right? So I'm admittedly being a little unfair to him by accusing him of not being a closer. That said, when he's had the opportunity, it's gone both ways. He hasn't been super consistent with it. And like on the other side, there's somebody like George Russell, who like Mercedes had what I think for them in 2022 is an awesome day. Like, full agree or not?
No, 100%. I mean, this has happened a couple times this season where Mercedes is going into the weekend saying like, "We'll be lucky if we finish a race," and then they end up, Russell has ended up in P5 or better every single week. So yeah, Russell finished in third, and Hamilton finished in fourth, which is, I think, ties Hamilton's best finish of the season.
And did so with all of the issues that they've had all season long, still very much apparent. Every time you saw a shot down that straightaway, there were cars doing this, and then there was Mercedes, who for those who don't know, like, why are we porpoising? We're porpoising because the cars are lower. And the cars are lower and they have tremendous downforce. So when they bottom out, which they do because the clearance is like that on these cars,
Mm-hmm.
and especially on a street course where you have all kinds of little bumps and features that you have on a regular street that, yes, has been resurfaced, but is still very much not a race quality surface in terms of pure track quality. When they bottom out, they will rebound. And when they rebound, they get the downforce, and then they bottom out and they rebound. So that's why you get these massive oscillations. And you can almost hear like Toto in preseason going, lower, make it as low as possible, like close, hit it down, And this is what Mercedes excellence is. And then you take, arguably, two of the top 5 or 6 best drivers in the world and put them in these cars, and they're going to come back and be like, my ass hurts. My ass hurts because you are pulverizing my spine week in and week out with this thing.
Lewis's message towards the end was that his seat was cold, and they were like, well, what could be causing his seat to be cold? Maybe he spilled his drink. Maybe, like, there shouldn't be any fluid in the car that's making his seat cold. And they were like, no, maybe his ass is just numb. Maybe he's been bouncing around for an hour and a half and he no longer can feel his ass. And so that's what happens when you're in an elite sport. Sometimes you just lose feeling in your ass.
Yeah. And that's, by the way, like, just a little like racing lore here. Most important organ for a driver besides the 2 hands that are on the wheel, or in the case of some NASCAR drivers, 1. The most important thing is what Carl Edwards used to call the old assometer. Like the butt. Like, yes, what will you get on DNF, the F1 podcast, that you won't get anywhere else? The assometer. Like, the butt is a very sensitive instrument in terms of determining how a race car is handling. If it's numb, more credit to Lewis for his obvious genius in conducting a 4th place finish when the most important sensor in the whole car, his ass, was completely numb.
Yeah, the ass sensor was off the charts today. And I think you might have also just referred to the ass as an organ, which is a classification that I haven't heard yet before. But it is interesting because Hamilton seems to be having a lot of problems with this car. He's finished behind Russell in almost every race, but Russell seems to be having the same issues and is still getting better results out of the car. And I wonder if it's a combination of just age and experience. Russell's used to driving less elite cars, so he's able to get more out of it, and Hamilton's used to having the fastest car on the track, and so he still doesn't know how to drive this. And maybe it's also that Hamilton's in his mid to late 30s, and so his back is taking a beating, and Russell's is also taking a beating, but he's just rebounding quicker from it. I'm not really sure what it is.
He's just got the stupidity of youth, right? Which is that your body just doesn't feel damage, maybe. I think it's that Russell is still very much in the I'm used to driving a terrible car. He's used to driving a Williams, and he was so good in a Williams that Mercedes picked him up. And now he's the best boy. That is, I love the media's coverage in England of George Russell because they're always like, what a lad. What a good boy. What a what a nice man. What a fair boy from what a fair boy from the fields who
Yeah.
volunteered for his nation to serve in F1.
Yeah, my favorite description of him is Holly Anderson saying that he looks like a haunted Victorian doll.
To me, he looks like every haunted boy who died at like Verdun. That's
Yes.
it. Like he always looks like, I was to marry George Russell. And then, the Germans put him down, and now I married a cruel businessman from Manchester. Such is my fate here on the
Yes.
boards. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he was actually an extra in Dunkirk. He looks like
He
he looks like
does.
Christopher Nolan's type in that film.
He does.
But the other thing about Lewis is that like he's just so existential. Like I think him and Russell probably share the same frustrations with the car, but Lewis's are like it's an indication that the world is ending and they're not going to finish every race and they're going to finish in last if at all, and this is like the worst thing that's ever happened, and it's a little sad, but then it's like, is this the old Mercedes bait and switch, because now you guys are just, you're still the best car. If Ferrari's out of the race, you're the best behind Red Bull,
Yeah.
and there's really like AlphaTauri's kind of close sometimes, but like McLaren's not up there this year, so you guys are probably the third best car.
Well, in terms of gamesmanship, and that's really what we're talking about if we're talking about Mercedes and Toto Wolff here, I think they're back to poor mouthing. They're back to poor mouthing. Poor mouthing being the practice of saying, I don't even know if we're going to finish this race. I don't even know if we're going to get through it. It'll be hard to tell. It'll be very difficult. They put down a 3-4. So I don't think they're catching Red Bull. No, I don't think, by the way, that they would have finished 3-4 if Ferrari could have kept their cars on the track. I also want to say Ferrari keeping their cars on the track is an issue. So this is very much in play. It's not just
Right.
like, okay, we have to consider the absolute quality of the car. Absolute quality of the car, if we know who's going to finish, it'll be like Red Bull, Ferrari, or Ferrari, Red Bull, depending on the track and depending on the outcome. And then there's going to be a Mercedes. It's not the way the races play out. The races play out in circumstance, and circumstance happens to be Ferrari's going to blow up. Ferrari's going to blow up a couple of times, right? Maybe
Mhm.
you lose both cars due to mechanical failures. So Mercedes has a real interesting spot going into like the second half of the season to me, because they could finish really strong, even with a car that I think is always at a disadvantage because of porpoising and because of its overall profile. They still have two drivers who can make it happen in a week. So like they feel, I don't want to say like they're close to a win, but circumstantially they feel way more competitive than they have, since the beginning of the season to me.
Right. And if you didn't watch the races and just listen to all of the media coverage around Mercedes and everything that Toto says, you would assume that they are, in fact, the 10th best car in Formula One.
Mm-hmm.
Like even before the race today, Toto Wolff told the Sky reporters that he thinks that the porpoising is so bad that Lewis won't be able to finish the race because his back will just, I guess he'll be in so much pain he won't be able to finish it. And I saw Lewis get out of the car when the race ended, and it didn't look great. Like we mentioned, his ass
No.
was completely numb, but like he looked like he was struggling to even like lift himself out of the car. But he's also, I don't think, the type of driver who's going to just quit in the middle of the race because he's in pain. Like he's a elite athlete. Elite athletes tend to just push through those things for better or for worse. If my back hurt that bad driving my Honda Accord, I would probably push through also, but I also don't have a team of millionaires trying to make it more comfortable for me. So there's a little slight difference there.
That'd be real cool if you were driving a Honda Accord and yet millionaires were like, we need to keep Jess on the road.
We need to keep her on the turnpike.
We need to get the full. Yeah, no, she's got to be on that turnpike. She's got to make this commute. We got to get her to DNF. We got to get her to the podcast.
I mean, it is an interesting conundrum though, because the easy fix would be to, I guess, raise the floor of the car slightly, but then they're not going to be as fast. So do you sacrifice speed and then you're complaining about finishing P12 or P14, or do you like risk severing your sciatic nerve? I'm not really sure the answer. They don't pay me to
I
consider these
mean,
things.
yeah, like if I'm Lewis Hamilton, this just continues. You said he was being existential. This continues my line of existential thinking, which is, what am I? Do I really like how much
What is a
he
back?
has? Yeah, what is a back? Do I need one? he probably wants one in his post-retirement life, which is something he has to start thinking about. Because honestly, what else does he have to prove? He's got nothing to prove. That's the best driver of all time. We're just in gravy. We're in gravy time. We're in bonus time now. What do you want to do with it? Right? Like, is it
Mhm.
a matter of keeping your platform to speak volubly on, social issues that you feel deeply about? It cannot be about the money. It
No.
cannot. Then again, I don't have 400, $300 million. So maybe that feels less secure than one thinks. I can't imagine that. Maybe you're just actually trying for the team. Dare I say, maybe that's actually a genuine feeling here. Like, because Lewis has at times really been a team player and has always been like very, very, very participatory. So I don't know. He doesn't. I know some people in the British press accuse him of being a diva, and I like kind of want to invite those people to just kick rocks because you know, for me that's pretty baseless. He's a very honest driver, and at times too honest sometimes with the media. I think especially given that they're not really going to give him a fair shake for a lot of reasons.
Mhm.
None of them real good.
None of them fair. Yeah.
No, none of them fair. So I don't know how much longer you want to do this, dude. I
Well,
mean,
yeah. I I think speaking of existential Formula 1 drivers, there's
hmm
there's been a lot of chatter about Daniel Ricciardo this season.
hmm
Ricciardo finishes P8, Lando Norris finishes P9. Uh, this might I can't remember. I don't know the last time both McLarens finished in the points. I don't think it's happened very often lately, but
hmm
before this race, I was listening to a lot of Formula One podcasts. I read a lot of Formula One media, and people were discussing if Ricardo could potentially get sacked from McLaren. I know he's on a contract for another year and a half. That
hmm
seems excessive. He's still like extremely popular, right? And it's not like Lando Norris has been doing great this season. He has definitely been outpacing Ricardo, but I thought that they had an interesting strategy today, which was let's just keep Daniel Ricciardo out there on the same tires for the entire race and just like see what happens. And it kind of worked.
I think the only guy who was going longer was Valtteri. I think Valtteri Bottas was out there on like I seem to look up at one point it was like 29 laps of the same tires. I'm like, oh yeah, y'all are just out for a
Just keep
drive, man.
going. Yeah.
Yeah, just Alpha, especially once Joe went out. Alpha was just like, hey man, keep the car warm. We're good. Uh, McLaren, I thought it was funny at that Lando, of course, we're all adults enough to hear Lando on the radio going, I've got better pace. You should to not make a big deal of it and go, yeah, these are just insanely competitive people. Like that's of course what he would say going forward, right? But McLaren, remember their big goal, like they wanted to be like that mid like fifth place, right? They wanted to be like third or fourth in
Mhm.
terms of the constructor standings. And they are at this point in the constructors title, they are fourth. So really, like, I know there's been a lot of talk, and I know that the gap between them, by the way, I say they're fourth. Mercedes has 161 points. McLaren has 65. Essentially, McLaren's competing with Alpine at this point for that fourth spot. I think they're okay with it given how bad things were at one point at that team, and particularly with Ricardo, who, if, by the way, seconds after the season ends, Ricardo just says, yep, the podcast empire starts now.
Yeah.
And he becomes the Pat McAfee of the fire suit culture. I think nobody would be surprised by that, right?
No, and he's definitely moving to either Austin or LA. I mean, I think he already has a house in LA, but he's going to be somewhere stateside running his media empire when the season ends. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. McLaren was interesting to watch their weird pit strategy. It actually wasn't that interesting. I don't think Sky even really covered it. But I guess it worked kind of. So good for McLaren.
But listen, both in the points, fourth best in the constructors championship. Zach Brown gets to keep his gig. Like I think that's really kind of what we want here at McLaren. And then Ricardo retires at the end of the season. That's really what we're headed to. And I think they all know it, which is probably really frustrating for baby Lando. your boy,
Yeah.
that for Ricardo to be put in front of him at any point. If you saw at the end of the race, by the way, did you see him take a little peek? Like he took a
No.
little. Yeah, no. Like I think it was lap 50. Lap 50, he was right on Ricardo's tail, and they're like, "No, just stay put. Everyone
Don't
stay
do
put.
it.
Right,
Don't do it.
right
Yeah.
put." And you saw Lando like, just take a little
What if
nudge.
I did
Hmm.
a little bit? Just a little?
You do that if you were a driver, right?
Oh
If you
yeah, I
were, if
wouldn't
you're,
listen to
yeah.
anyone, but that's why I would never be a successful driver. I mean, Lando's got to learn from last year. Just listen to race control. Sometimes they know what's going on. But
Sometimes.
that would be a really frustrating. I mean, if you're a Ferrari, don't listen to them. Do whatever Carlos Sainz does in Monaco and trust your gut. But that would be very frustrating because I think Lando probably thinks that he's their number one driver. He's definitely trended better than Ricardo, but also Ricardo is the only McLaren driver to win a race in the last 2 seasons. And sometimes he's really good, and we'll always have Monza, but it is a very frustrating teammate dynamic that I don't think we have in any other sport, where you simultaneously like need your teammate but want to beat them, but you also kind of hate them, but you kind of have to love them because your team's going to make you do all these like goofy PR stunts with them all the time, like wear crop tops with James Corden. Still don't know what that was about. No one has explained that one. I think there's a video somewhere. I'm not going to watch it. I'm not going to seek that out, but it happened.
We saw it in person.
Yeah, we did.
We did. They looked great. Well, two out of three of them looked great. And there was also James Corden.
I just don't know why. I just don't understand. I don't know.
Have you seen, by the way, the video of, I can't remember the actress's name, being told that the James Corden show that he's going back to England? Like she's on the red carpet and she's told, "Oh yeah, we're going to, Corden's going back to England," and her reaction is, "Oh no!" Like it is the most.
Oh,
It
darn!
is, oh yeah, it is. It is by far the most. It is the most disingenuous reaction, and it is the most designed. It was always Saldana. It was always Saldana was told, like, "Oh yeah, James Corden's going back to England." And she's like, "Oh no, really? What can I do to help?" Yeah, it's delightful.
It's like when your coworker you don't like is like, "I got a new job," and you're like, "Wow,
yeah,
that's crazy."
That's
for you.
crazy. Yeah, we'll see you later.
Yeah.
See you later. You can have yeah.
You owe me for lunch last week, by the way. But yeah, like have fun. Good luck with that.
We should hang. That's good. We should just definitely call each other. Speaking, by the way, of things barely held together by duct tape. Yuki Tsunoda.
Yeah.
Yuki, who was hanging around 5-6 at the time, was going to have a top 10 finish. And if there's anything the world needs and craves, it is top 10 Yuki Tsunoda finishes. Okay? Yeah. Because our shortest of short kings, the man who is a connoisseur of fine places to poop around the world, the guy who hates exercise, easily the most relatable F1 driver of all, was doing really well for AlphaTauri before his wings started malfunctioning.
Yeah.
At one point, you could only see one flap of it saying Tauri. This was given the dreaded black and orange flag.
I have never seen one of those before, Spencer. I don't think I've ever
Yeah.
seen a black and orange flag before. This was exciting for me. So
yeah, they gave him the old Oklahoma State. Yeah.
So he had to go pit. What I thought was weird about this at first was Sky noticed that his rear wing was malfunctioning, and then there was like a several minute gap until the stewards actually waved the flag to alert the car that it needed to get fixed. And I thought it was interesting because it was like, well, shouldn't like they have noticed that also like sooner? But I guess maybe Sky has better visual on the cars than the actual people directing the race. That's weird, but sure. So then he went in, and I don't think anyone told him over the radio that he was going to be a longer pit stop because they needed to fix this rear wing thing. So it was just a whole scramble in the pit lane. And then they pull out the gaff tape, which anyone who's ever worked in production has gaff taped things at the last minute to make them work. So I immediately felt like I was qualified to be an AlphaTauri engineer because I was like, oh, I've done that. I've gaff taped shit together at the last minute under pressure. This is easy. I can do this. And then they just let him go back out and race with his wing gaff taped. So that was cool. That's how multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar sports leagues operate, I guess. So,
By the way, AlphaTauri doing very well this race, period. Okay, especially when you take the Tsunoda finish into context, that he was doing a lot better until they had to use gap tape on his wing, right? But AlphaTauri, also, by the way, like everybody did real well. Pierre Gasly did well this race. Like, they are, even Red Bull's junior team
yeah.
is kicking ass. Like, that's the one, like, actual general thing to take away, is that Red Bull's not just good at the top, right? Like, their affiliate team is also incredible at the moment, like firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
I just thought, like, oh, thank God, we've got some NASCAR in this thing. Because if you watch NASCAR, they'll send cars out without a hood, right? You just got to get points. You just got to get laps in. They'll send cars out, like, if the driver gets shot, they're like, hey, put a compress on it, tourniquet it. We got this, right? At one point, I watched Rusty Wallace get out of his car to fix his own car on the track during a full black flag for a race, and he got in trouble for it. But he tried it, right? Like, Dale Earnhardt cleaned his own windshield. So when you see a $1 million, piece of engineering genius come into the pits, and they crack out the gaffing tape to start going over it, and you hear the announcers going, race control is pounding down the tarmac, like they are heading out, running toward AlphaTauri, going like, no! No!
It was some
like,
extremely Florida shit, I feel like. I think it's actually, like, it more so speaks to how much of a miracle product gaff tape is. Like, I don't even think this is a knock on AlphaTauri. I think this is, like, gaff tape is really amazing. If we had more gaff tape to fix America's crumbling infrastructure, we probably wouldn't need these $1 trillion spending bills. Like, just gaff tape the Roberto Clemente Bridge back together, and we're probably good for another 100 years.
Hey, man, you just put a little duct tape on that. We're good.
Yeah.
We're going to send that out. We're fine. I know of all of the drivers for this to happen to, by the way, Yuki is, like, for me, top 3 in terms of fine. Just let's go. Never.
Yeah, whatever. I'm not retiring. We didn't get to hear his radio call, though. Do you think it was because it was just riddled with F-bombs?
No, I think it's because he didn't react. I think they're like, yeah, Yuki, we're going to tape it. And he's like, hey,
okay.
Cool. I'm great. Like, Yuki typically cusses, when things go grandiosely wrong. And I think in this case, it was just, sure, man, why not? At this point, given the fact that I'm running one of my best races of the year, and all of a sudden you guys can't get the wing to work. You can't get the DRS to work.
I wonder if there's anything in common with Verstappen's DRS not working. I doubt it, because I think Verstappen's was because he was just jamming the DRS button so many times. But that's kind of an odd one for both of the Red Bull run cars. Just maybe Tsunoda was jamming the button too hard as well, so he only pressed half the button or something.
Yeah, you get this machine that it takes, a team of 120 engineers to build. And ultimately what you get is them having to go, please tell the driver not to press the fast button, right? Stop pressing the fast button so much. By the way, if you were watching this and you are in the comments and you have an interesting question or something you would like us to address here at DNF, perhaps we will. Go ahead and drop those in the comments wherever you are watching this program. If it's good, we'll pick it up. We have a couple of other things to discuss here, which is this. I wanted to talk a little bit about DNFs, okay, because as of last season, okay, so as of 2021, from GP Blog on Instagram, who had the most DNFs? Who had the most DNFs in the hybrid era? So since 2014.
Okay. The most?
Yes. Who had the most? As of like February 2021.
Well, it's got to be someone who has been around for a while, I would guess. Like, it can't be, it can't be a younger driver. I think I actually know the answer to this, so I'm just going to say the name. Is it Fernando Alonso?
That is correct. Oh boy, Fernando Alonso had the most DNFs. Number two, I think, should be apparent, okay, in terms of cursed hard luck drivers who find a way to not find a way.
Is it Carlos?
It is Carlos Sainz, the smooth operator himself. That is correct.
And this is through 2021, you said, right? So he's probably in first place now because he's had 3 this season.
Listen, man, he's up there. Fernando Alonso, by the way, fine job for Alpine today. P7.
Yeah, you know what? The races that he's been in, like he hasn't finished well this season, but like he's been annoying in every single race, right? Like he has been the most annoying driver, whether it's this Alonso train at Monaco or he had some exciting wheel-to-wheel racing. I forget which race earlier this season, but like way in the back. And then today, like just ended up having a really solid race. Just one of the drivers that sticks around even when he's not winning, and everyone is just kind of annoyed that he's in there and he's doing so well.
Yeah, but good day for old guys. Like this was definitely like a copper back brace special because not only did you have Lewis Hamilton at P4 because he definitely qualifies as an old dude now.
Yeah.
Sebastian Vettel, Aston Martin finishing P6, and also Lance Stroll had a car. Don't worry about what happened to him. Don't worry about how he finished. It doesn't matter, and the points are made up for him. And Alonso in 7th, and Ricardo, not exactly spring chicken in 8th. So like the top 10 was filled with guys who are definitely concerned about their vitamin consumption.
I'm wondering if maybe Mercedes can just gaff tape Lewis's spine back together. I wonder if we can use maybe just put some gaff tape under his ass, make his seat more comfortable. We got to be able to figure out a solution with some gaff tape here.
You hear about Hamilton, and we hear about his discomfort on the racetrack. We never hear about Vettel, because I just think you look at Vettel and you go, yeah, that man's in pain.
Yeah.
That man hurts. Like, he does not look like a man who's overly comfortable. He looks like a guy who's just thinking at this point, it'd be nice to race in a car that didn't feel like a carbon fiber coffin around my aging form. He's definitely there. But the other one, the third, the guy with the third most DNFs, right? As of 2021, and I think he's tacked on a couple since then, is a surprising name. But maybe not surprising when you consider his style.
I know who it is.
Yeah.
This I know. It is Max Verstappen.
It is Max Verstappen.
Who has flamed out famously in several races. Some to his own racing style, some because car issues. Last year in Baku, the puncture on his tire with like only a few laps to go was a famous one. And then Red Bull had another one this season, right? So you got to tack that one on too. But yeah, that's a surprising list. I think the first two don't shock me at all, but Max Verstappen being third kind of does.
A couple of questions from the chat, Doug. If you see them, keep them coming. Naturally, no one is asking about the race. I appreciate that.
That's what we were hoping for, yeah.
That's what, yeah. I mean, if you want technical expertise, there are other podcasts. If you want people who will address questions like this, which driver do you think has the best watch collection? Just full disclosure, I am not a watch dude, and I do not understand watch dudes because I think all watch dudes are guys who fantasize about rolling up to a casino in Monte Carlo and doing this. And people being like, ooh. And that's not my bag at all. I'm just like, yeah, I'd break it. No matter how much I pay for a watch, I'm just going to break it or lose it.
I feel like the best watch guy has to be a driver who's not sponsored by a watch company, right? Because then they probably only have that watch. So it can't be like Lewis Hamilton. I don't know who the other watch people are because like you, I am not a watch guy. In fact, I am not even a watch woman. I have no idea how to pronounce most watch brand names. But I guess I could see one of the guys who lives in Monaco. I could see Charles Leclerc having some nice watches.
I am going to go ahead and make a guess based on strict rich boy status. I'm just going to bet that Lance Stroll has this whole idea in his head. Like, I roll up in the club and I show my watch. My girl's like, ooh. Which is not the case ever. You only show a watch and another watch guy is like, oh yeah, that's a nice watch, dude. I don't want to kiss you, but that's a nice watch.
None of
But
them wear Apple Watches. Or what if like you watched like a race and you watched Max Verstappen like walk into his car and he has like a Fitbit on? What would you do? It's like what?
no,
He's
no,
like,
that
I
makes
only have
sense.
6,000 steps today.
Yeah, no, like I totally think that's probably the case, right? Like if you don't know, and I love this tradition, on Thursdays and Fridays, a lot of the drivers and their crews go out and they run the track. That's what
Hmm.
they'll do for exercise, and they'll run, one or two laps, depending how long the track is. I bet at Spa, it's probably not the full track, given how long Spa is. Maybe some of the distance runners hit that, but like it's very cute. They all go out in their same
It is
togs. They all go
cute.
out in
Yeah.
like team colors, and it's like Ferraris out there like all jogging.
Yeah.
You'll see Mattia's out there on his bike going around the track, right? So if you wonder if somebody has decided to see how fast they can go on their bike on the track, I guarantee you it has happened on an F1 track. Um, it's absolutely adorable. We have a question, by the way. How many turns do you think you can make on an F1 track before crashing out?
Zero. I mean if the F1 like video game is any indication of my Formula 1 steering skills, I would not even make it off the grid. That game is so Have you ever played this game, Spencer? It
It
is
is
so hard.
Yes. First of all, that is done by the official game is done by Codemasters, who they do the best racing games. They do dirt, and they're all real super accurate. And you can change that accuracy. So if you do it on easy, you might be able to get the F1 car on the track, and you might be able to keep it on the track for a couple of turns. If you do it on hard, you're not going to take it out of the pits. It's not going to work. You can't
Yeah.
get it off the grid. You just sit there and do spins because without a wheel setup and without a realistic sort of configuration, there's no way to move it. It is the hardest racing game in the world. So I feel pretty confident in saying that if you just give me an F1 car, I'm going to crash it before in turn one. That's if
Yeah.
I get it going straight.
Yeah, well, they pedal with both feet, right? So you have to be
Yeah.
able to pedal with your left foot, which I've never done before. I don't think I could even I don't like I can't even move my foot like that. I don't think that part would work. I'd probably end up trying to pedal with one foot, which would be a disaster. And I there's too many buttons on the steering wheel. It's just not going to work.
I can dual pedal. Like I can do that. Like I not because I'm cool, but because I actually went to a training course to learn how to do that. But I would try to run an F1 car like a rally car, and I don't think that would yield good results. I think I would be in like Nikita Mazepin territory real fast.
I don't think I could even drive the safety car around a F1 track without crashing it. And that's just a regular car. Although it's probably a manual transmission engine, so I don't think
Hmm.
that's going to work for me.
If you were going to take an F1 car, if you were going to take an F1 track in a car, what car would it be? What car do you feel confident I could probably get it around pretty quickly?
What like regular car?
Yeah, no, it just I'm giving you carte blanche. You
I
can pick
get
anything.
a
Anything
golf
from like a
cart. A
you
golf
can take it
cart.
from a golf cart to a supercar. I don't care. So
I
you would
could
do a golf cart?
I could do a golf cart.
I would realistically want to do one in a go-kart. Like in like
Ooh,
in like a kick-ass governor off go-kart. I think that would be a blast.
that would be really fun. This track also at Baku, I noticed it has a lot of 90-degree turns, and I don't think any other F1 tracks really have that many or really any at all. And it just makes me feel like every time I see them driving up to a one of the like perpendicular turns that someone has to like turn their turn signal on and stop completely before going forward. It's a very strange track. Very like square.
It is. I think half of the appeal of Baku is Baku itself, which, if you don't know, Baku is kind of like if you crossed 1,001 Arabian Nights with Houston. There's a lot of petrochemical money, so you get these big, like, glorious, glass towers, but you also get all of this fantastic, old fort, old world architecture. Yeah, like the setting itself is awesome. I don't know if you noticed this, but at one point the F1 crew, the Sky Sports crew, had a camera mounted in the tower so that you could see from one window of the castle tower, and then they moved the camera over to follow through a turn. So it's a really cool setting. I think for the drivers, and I think for the viewer, it's probably not as much payoff as the scenery portends. Like, I don't know if the race ever lives up to its frame, right? One last question here. It's been a while since we've seen the Nicholas Latifi Memorial Safety Car. What upcoming race do you think we'll see him throw himself into a wall? Well, first of all, we would say hopefully none. Throwing yourself into a wall hurts a lot at 200 miles an hour. If we are to see Latifi gently spin off the track and do what he does, which track will it be? Hey, buddy, Canada's next.
That's what I was going to say too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see it in Canada, and we'll probably be back next weekend too, because I think this went well, Spencer. Should we wrap up the show?
I think we can go ahead and wrap up the show. What did we learn today about F1, Jessica?
Ferrari is trash. I'm not going to buy a Ferrari. I'm not getting one of those. They're unreliable.
But Jessica, this is the stump where Giorgio hammered out your body panels, right? This is I really wish the Ferrari would come out and give their standard sales pitch in the post-game commentary, post-race commentary. I wish they come out and be like, but have you seen the rich leather that lines the seat of Charles Leclerc? Have you seen the fine detailing that we do in our only factory?
I think I've heard Christian Horner and a lot of the other teams complain that the cost cap is going to prevent them from racing in the last 4 races because of inflation and all of these things. And we can talk about all of that next week. But I think Ferrari is secretly hoping that happens, and hopefully they can just take off the rest of the season and be like, oh, inflation. We're gonna come. We'll see you guys next year. We'll pick back up with this next year.
Doug has a fact for us.
WTF1 official just posted, Charles Leclerc now holds an F1 record he probably would not want. He has the most pole positions in a single season with the fewest wins. A win conversion of just 26.6%.
Yeah, so about that whole thing, Charles, like the C at the end of Leclerc not being for closers, that's... I don't want to be right, but I might be right about that. Oh, thank you, Doug. Jess, I think we are good here. I think we green flagged this thing. I'm going to give myself like a P4 for this. P4.
Oh, that's pretty good. All right. So how's your back feeling?
Terrible. Awful. I'm old. Just
so you're Lewis Hamilton. Cool.
Just me and Seb Vettel over here in the cold tubs.
Well, that doesn't sound like a bad Sunday to me.
No, it's not bad at all. If you are watching this, thank you for joining us for the inaugural DNF. I am Spencer Hall. This here. Oh, I got it right. I pointed the right way.
But I might be this way. I don't know if it's a mirror.
No, I got you this time. That's Jessica Smetana. And we will see you for the Canadian GP, y'all.
See you next time.